Mourners in a Michigan town have held a prayer service for the victims of America's latest shooting massacre. 6 people were killed by a gunman in Kalamazoo on Saturday night. The pastor told the congregation there was no easy answer as to why such a thing could happen, as the victims' names were displayed. Police have arrested taxi driver Jason Dalton. It's been confirmed the 45-year-old worked for Uber. It's alleged he shot his victims at random at 3 locations.
He has no criminal history that we know of. No incidents, nothing in his background that we know of, or anything that we know about him that would lead us to believe he was capable of this type of behavior.
Whisper in the night dark, footsteps in the backyard, shadows dance on stained walls, bloodlust every nightfall. Fear grips like chains tight, chasing you in moonlight. Eyes gleam with twisted clay, no escape from me.
What up, home slices? What up, home fries? And what up, homes of other varieties? If you're new, welcome. I'm Emily, the Fine Art Medium. I'm a psychic medium who specializes in the paranormal, and I have a degree in social deviance. So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the Uber killer and basically his alleged claim that he was possessed through the Uber app. And yeah, we're going to jump right into this with his background and the information of this case. Okay, so before the shootings, Jason Brian Dalton visited 3 gun stores with a friend. During one visit, he bought a black jacket with concealed carry pockets, while the store owner noted that Dalton appeared to be in good spirits. His friend observed that he was quieter than usual. Dalton had previously been an occasional customer at this store, but had never purchased a firearm there. On February 20th, 2016, at approximately 4 p.m., Matt Mellon requested an Uber to a friend's house and was picked up by Jason in a silver Chevrolet Equinox at 4:21. During the ride, Dalton answered a call and subsequently began driving erratically. He swerved into oncoming traffic, crossed a median, ignored a stop sign, and sideswiped a Ford Taurus, disregarding Mellon's request to stop. When Dalton finally halted at another stop sign, Mellon exited the vehicle and called 911, providing the dispatcher with details about the Equinox and its license plate. The dispatcher issued a be on the lookout alert for the vehicle. Prior to this, multiple 911 calls regarding Dalton's driving had been made, all of which went unheeded. At 4:34 p.m., Jason Brian Dalton returned home and called his wife 41 minutes later, requesting the keys to their Chevy HHR. They arranged to meet at his parents' house about 10 miles away. However, on his way there, Dalton accepted a pickup request at 5:15 from a woman needing him to collect her boyfriend from a Richland Township apartment complex. I don't know about you, but the time before the incident, it seems a bit pre-planned, if you ask me. Richland Township apartment shooting. The shootings commenced around 5:42 p.m. EST at a parking lot of the apartment complex, where a woman was shot multiple times but survived. She reported being confronted by a man in a vehicle with a German Shepherd in the back. When he asked if she was someone else and she said no, he turned his car around and shot at her repeatedly. To survive, she played dead, which honestly, if I was in that position, I would have as well. Approximately 15 rounds were fired, with 10 shell casings recovered from the scene. 5 children, including the woman's daughter, were present but escaped unharmed due to her actions. Investigators believe that Jason Brian Dalton's Uber request at the apartment complex was mishandled. The requester texted him shortly after the initial request with a corrected address, directing him to a different location nearby. She later tried calling him to clarify but received no response. A witness reported seeing an Equinox driving aggressively toward the apartment, cutting him off at a curve and nearly causing a head-on collision. He later identified Dalton as the driver on the news. At 6:05 p.m., approximately 20 minutes after the first shooting, Dalton called the requester, stating he hadn't seen her text and could not fulfill the ride because something had come up. Between the first and second shootings. 1 minute after the shooting, Dalton's Equinox was spotted running a red light at an intersection about a mile from the crime scene. It collided with another vehicle and fled, prompting the other driver to call 911. Around the same time, a neighbor discovered the injured woman, who was promptly treated by emergency personnel. Later, Dalton allegedly met his wife and children at his parents' home in Comstock Township. He told his wife that the Equinox had been sideswiped by an angry taxi driver in a Chevrolet Impala, who fired a shot at him out of frustration over losing business to Uber. He assured her that he had contacted Uber and that they would manage the situation. Dalton also gave his wife a 9mm Taurus handgun for protection, advising her to stay home and not take their children to school. When he attempted to leave in their Hummer H3, it wouldn't start, so he took the black Chevrolet HHR that his wife had been driving. As he departed, he reportedly told her he couldn't explain what was happening, but that it would be on the news. After leaving, Jason Brian Dalton withdrew cash from an ATM at 6:44 p.m. He then drove around for 35 minutes before allegedly returning home to switch handguns. He left again at 7:37 p.m. and resumed accepting Uber requests, completing them without any incidents. None of his passengers reported noticing anything unusual or concerning about him. Later that night at 8:26 p.m., Dalton called his wife and instructed her not to contact her parents. Kia dealership and Cracker Barrel shootings. At 10:01 p.m., the shooter arrived at a Kia dealership in Kalamazoo. A witness reported that after parking, he approached her boyfriend and his father at 10:05 and inquired about what they were looking at. Before they could answer, he fired approximately 18 rounds, fatally wounding both men. Witnesses in a nearby Burger King parking lot saw the shooter flee, with one calling 911 a minute after the gunfire. About 10 minutes later, a third shooting took place outside a Cracker Barrel restaurant in Texas Township, roughly 5 minutes from the Kia dealership. 4 individuals inside 2 vehicles were killed, and 1 person was injured. The shooter reportedly approached a victim in a white van, asked her a question, and then shot her before open firing on an adjacent vehicle containing the other victims. This incident lasted about a minute before he fled the scene. He was alleged to have returned home to reload his weapon afterwards. The police response, manhunt, and Dalton's arrest. After officers responded to the Kia dealership shooting and received reports of gunfire at the Cracker Barrel, they suspected a mobile active shooter. Witnesses described the gunman as driving a dark-colored Chevrolet HHR. Utilizing newly installed security footage from the dealership, the police broadcast a description of the shooter over the radio. The Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety alerted the public via Facebook, urging residents to be vigilant. Numerous traffic stops were conducted on vehicles matching the gunman's description, and several reports of gunfire at various locations, including the Western Michigan University campus, were investigated but found to be false alarms. As the manhunt continued, Dalton was still accepting Uber fares. At 12:04 a.m. on February 21st, he picked up 3 passengers and dropped them off at a WMU dormitory. The passengers later noted that while their driver wasn't particularly friendly, he did not raise any alarms. Shortly after, at 12:12 a.m., Dalton picked up 4 more passengers and drove them to their hotel. During this ride, one passenger, aware of the ongoing shooting reports, jokingly asked Dalton, "Are you the shooter?" Dalton simply replied, "No." Why? First of all, do you really think someone that's guilty of that crime is going to answer honestly? Come on. A few minutes later, he picked up another group of 3, and once again a passenger inquired if he was the shooter, to which Dalton vehemently denied. At 12:36 a.m., a police sergeant from the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office noticed Jason Brian Dalton dropping off 3 passengers. He followed Dalton and requested backup. Joined by KDPS officer, they conducted a traffic stop. At 12:40 a.m., when additional officers arrived, they pulled Dalton out of his vehicle and arrested him. At the time of the arrest, Dalton was wearing the jacket he had bought from a gun store and a bulletproof vest. He claimed to the police that the vest was intended for his son, who was an explorer with the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office. Officers discovered a handgun tucked into the back of his waistband. Oh my God, this is so premeditated, it's not even funny. Investigators believe that none of the victims across the various shooting scenes were connected, and it was reported that at least 30 rounds had been fired during the incidents. Perpetrator. Jason Dalton, born on June 22, 1970, was identified by police as a suspect in the shootings. He was detained on February 21st at approximately 12:40 a.m. EST without incident after officers pulled over his vehicle, a black Chevrolet HHR, which matched the description of the getaway vehicle used in the shootings. After his arrest, Jason confessed to the shootings but attributed his actions to his Uber mobile app. He claimed that the app's symbol resembled that of the Order of the Eastern Star and insisted that he took over his body during the incidents after he pressed a button on a new app that appeared, which he described as resembling the devil. Dalton later stated that he was no longer experiencing these issues. Police noted that he had no known criminal history or mental health record prior to the events. The legal proceedings. On February 22, 2016, Dalton was arraigned on 16 charges, including 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to commit murder, and 8 counts of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. He was to reappear in court on March 10th for a preliminary examination hearing. On March 3rd, he was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine his competence to stand trial. He reappeared in court on April 22nd, where it was ruled by the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry that he was found competent to stand trial. Eusebio Solis, a former Calhoun County Chief Assistant Prosecutor and a former Calhoun City Commissioner, was appointed to represent Dalton in court. Dalton appeared on May 20th for a preliminary hearing to determine if there was enough evidence to try him on the charges. During the hearing, Dalton made a verbal outburst and interrupted Tiana Caruthers, the first victim attacked in the shootings, while she was testifying. He reportedly made somewhat indecipherable statements and caused Caruthers to cry, forcing a recess to be called. Dalton was restrained and removed from the courtroom by sheriff's deputies. The hearing resumed later in the day, with Dalton participating via video hookup from jail. On June 6th, following a pre-trial conference, Dalton's attorneys announced their plans to present a legal insanity defense for their client. He underwent a psychiatric evaluation conducted by the Michigan Center of Forensic Psychiatry in Saline, I don't know. A process that was carried out over the next 60 days. His trial was tentatively expected to start in late September or early October. A status conference was tentatively set for August 15th. On August 12th, the conference was postponed to September 30th, with the Kalamazoo County Chief Assistant Prosecutor saying that the evaluation has not yet been finished. On that day, the conference was delayed again because Dalton's psychological report was not yet finished. A June 13, 2017 trial date was set. This trial was later delayed. Jury selection was later scheduled to start January 3, 2019, with opening statements being scheduled to start January 7, 2019. On January 7, 2019, Dalton pleaded guilty to all counts against him. On February 5, 2019, Dalton was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dalton is currently in prison in the Oaks Correctional Facility. Victims. The first people killed were Tyler D. Smith, who was 17 years old, and his father, Richard E. Smith, who was 53, who were both killed at the Kia car dealership. 4 women: Mary Jo Nye, 60 years old; Mary Lou Nye, 62; Dorothy Brown, 74, and Barbara Hawthorne, 68, were killed at the Cracker Barrel. All 4 women were friends. Mary Jo Nye and Mary Lou Nye were sister-in-laws. Abigail Kopf, who was 14, suffered several injuries at Cracker Barrel, including a gunshot wound to the head. At the time of her shooting, she was accompanying victim Barbara Hawthorne, a close friend whom she called her grandmother. She was initially reported dead, but later confirmed to have survived. As of February 23rd, she remained on a ventilator and in critical condition, though she was breathing on her own by February 28th and was able to open her eyes by March 3rd. Kopf was discharged from Bronson Methodist Hospital on March 8th and transferred to the Mary Freebed Rehabilitation Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Her skull was damaged during the Cracker Barrel shooting, and she underwent surgery at Bronson Methodist Hospital to replace the missing portion of her skull. She had to undergo surgery again due to an infection induced by her previous injury. Kopf was discharged on July 26th and allowed to return home, but had to undergo surgery yet again on August 17th due to a related skin infection. The surgery was successfully completed 2 days later. Tiana Caruthers, 25, was the first victim to be shot in the shootings, being shot 4 times in the left arm, legs, and back, but survived. Her shooting occurred in the parking lot of an apartment in Richland Township. Her arm had been surgically reconstructed as a result of the shooting. In August 2016, she underwent 2 further surgeries on her legs due to a medical setback. This is insane. Now let's talk about Jason Dalton's personal life. Maybe we can get some clues as to what happened. Jason Brian Dalton was raised in Greenfield, Indiana, and attended middle and high school in nearby Charlottesville. He later graduated from Comstock High School in Kalamazoo in 1989. Dalton then went on to Kalamazoo Valley Community College, where he earned an associate's degree in law enforcement in December 1992, although he did not participate in the police academy program. Dalton married his wife, Carol, in 1995, and the couple had 2 children who were aged 10 and 15 at the time of the killing spree. According to an old friend, Jason Dalton had attempted to secure a job as a police officer in Michigan and nearby states, but was unsuccessful and had no desire to relocate for work. If he would have gotten those jobs, the body count, I'm sure, would have increased significantly. Carol Dalton initiated divorce proceedings just a week after the tragic events. The family resided in Cooper Township. He was generally described by those who knew him as a nice guy and a good family man. However, reports indicated that he had been exhibiting signs of depression in the days leading up to the shooting, and neighbors noted that he appeared increasingly paranoid just before the incidents took place. In the 2 weeks leading up to the killing spree, Dalton worked as a driver for Uber and allegedly continued to take fares between the shooting incidents. An Uber representative confirmed that Dalton had passed the company's background checks. A former co-worker from the insurance company recalled an incident where Dalton yelled at a customer over the phone, slammed the phone down, and angrily paced around his desk afterward. Dalton had previously been counseled regarding his professionalism with customers. In another account, a customer described an encounter with Dalton when he called him back to reassess a vehicle for damage that Dalton had overlooked in his appraisal. This customer characterized Dalton as unprofessional and prone to anger. And that's all we have about the case and the background of Dalton. So, let's talk about it, because there's a lot to unpack here. Now, I do want to give a disclaimer. I did try to channel information. I honestly did not get very much. And typically, when I channel and I'm looking for paranormal factors such as attachments or hauntings and things, usually there is symbols that I will receive, because that's part of my key system of what, I will receive telling me that it is paranormal related. But so, in this instance, I didn't get anything. I didn't get the pains in my body like I normally do. And I will say this, the first thing I saw was brain related. And when I saw brain related, it came up to me as a picture of a brain, and then I heard the phrase brain related. So, there most likely is a physical or a normal human explanation, not paranormal. So if I had to diagnose him, which again, I am not licensed, I have a degree, but I am not licensed, so please keep that in mind. This is just my educational based opinion. So based off of the information we know about Dalton, I am going to assume or guess that it's possible that he may have suffered from schizoaffective disorder. Maybe. And the reason I say this is because this is one of the disorders that kind of can just pop out of nowhere. And I'll give you more information on that. And again, all the sources that I have gotten my information from and like the diagnoses will be down below in the description box. So what is schizoaffective disorder? Schizoaffective disorder is a mental health condition with symptoms of schizophrenia and a mood disorder. People with schizoaffective disorder may experience depression, mania, and psychosis. Schizoaffective disorder treatment often includes therapy and medications. This combination can improve symptoms and quality of life. Schizophrenia affects the way you think, act, perceive reality, and express emotions. Mood disorders change your feelings, energy levels, and behaviors. What are the types of schizoaffective disorder? There are two types of schizoaffective disorder, and they are based on what mood disorder symptoms you experience. So we have a bipolar type. You have several days of extreme highs, which are mania, and you can have severe lows, which is depression. You may have an episode of increased energy with irritability, followed by a period of low energy with sadness. And then the second type would be depressive type. You only experience lows, or depression, your mood is depressed, and you may have a hard time completing your daily routine. You may experience feelings of hopelessness. I suspect he may have had the bipolar type because from what I was reading, it wasn't all depression. Like, he was still able to do his daily routine. Like, he was able to do things. His murder spree almost felt like a manic episode, if that makes sense. Like, what I was feeling during that episode were, like, very high energy levels. Almost like adrenaline, but not quite, like, high pumps of adrenaline. It just felt like my manic episodes that I have where I clean my entire house or pump out, like, 10 videos in one day. Obviously, my manic episodes are different than a killer's, but the feeling in which you have when you have that is very similar. It's just the behaviors are different. Now, how common is schizoaffective disorder? So, schizoaffective disorder is rare. One study in Finland estimates that 3 in every 1,000 people, or 0.3%, will develop schizoaffective disorder in their lifetime. It's difficult to know exactly how many people have this condition because it's challenging to diagnose. The symptoms of schizoaffective disorder overlap with mental health conditions. A misdiagnosis is possible but less likely. Let's talk about symptoms and causes. What are the symptoms of schizoaffective disorder? The symptoms of schizoaffective disorder fall into the following categories. Psychosis, similar to schizophrenia, symptoms that affect your perception of reality, your thoughts, and behaviors. And then mood, similar to bipolar disorder or major depression, symptoms that affect your emotions and how you feel. The symptoms vary from person to person and range to mild to severe. Symptoms usually begin in your late teens or early adulthood, but there's still studies that this can appear at any point in your life. So common psychosis symptoms of schizoaffective disorder include hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thoughts and speech, abnormal or unexpected behaviors, little to no emotional expression or ability to feel pleasure. And then the common mood symptoms, like I said, are mania and depression. So mania, several days of feeling very energetic with racing thoughts, desire to participate in unsafe behaviors, agitation, excessive talkativeness, feeling on the top of the world, distractibility, and little desire or need for sleep. Depression, a period of sadness that may be accompanied by feelings of worthlessness, fatigue, irritability, insomnia, or excessive sleep, low energy, difficulty finding pleasure in things you enjoy, and trouble concentrating. Symptoms that affect your mood may lead to suicidal ideation. What causes schizoaffective disorder? So, of course, they don't know the exact cause of schizoaffective disorder. Researchers believe several factors may contribute to a diagnosis. Genetics, a genetic change among several different genes may increase your risk of developing schizoaffective disorder. The exact genes responsible are unknown, but studies are going to learn more about that, how genetics might influence this condition. Brain chemicals in your brain called neurotransmitter, help nerve cells in your brain communicate. Studies suggest that abnormalities of certain types of neurotransmitter like dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin may affect how your cells communicate, which can lead to symptoms. Brain structure. Abnormalities in the size and structure of certain parts of your brain, like the hippocampus, the thalamus, and white matter may contribute to symptoms. Okay, so I'm wondering then if maybe there might be either a brain tumor or blood clot or something in those areas here that could affect it. There's something wrong. What are the risk factors for schizoaffective disorder? Anyone can develop schizoaffective disorder. You may be more at risk for developing this condition if you are assigned female at birth. It's interesting how they put that specific phrase. Have a biological first-degree relative with this condition, so like a parent or sibling. Have a biological relative with another mental health condition. You may be more at risk of triggering schizoaffective disorder symptoms if you experience extreme stress or emotional trauma. Use non-prescribed medications, substances, or drugs. Yeah, And so stress could have been another factor. Maybe, he was doing Uber. He was looking for extra money, which nowadays a lot of people do Uber or Lyft for extra money because their normal jobs don't cut it, especially in this economy. And so maybe money was a stressor, or there was marital stressors or child stressors or emotional trauma. I wasn't getting information again when I channeled about this. What are the complications of schizoaffective disorder? So some of these complications can be life-threatening and include putting yourself in danger or at-risk situations, suicide, substance use disorder, other mental health conditions like anxiety or depression. In addition, you may have trouble with the following if you have schizoaffective disorder: keeping up with your daily routine, maintaining proper hygiene, meeting social, work, academic, or financial expectations. But, okay, let's break down this case here. So there are reports from his work environment that he kind of would lose his temper. There's reports of the incident where he kind of was very calm when this was all going down. And just like based off of channeling, technically I am a physical medium, and one could consider a medical medium because I get a lot of clairsentient impressions about a person's health and well-being. And so for him, internally, energy-wise, it felt very like manic, but like his expressions and his moods in a way were very stagnant and not very like emotional, or like very, I don't know, for someone who just unalived 6 people, he seemed pretty calm. So yeah, and plus he was, now allegedly, he claims that the device, his Uber app, was showing him the star of, it's essentially an upside down pentagram. And if you take that to be true, and he's not just making things up, that could be considered a hallucination. I do want to point out that, so Jason does say the symbol looks like one of the Order of the Eastern Stars, like, symbols, which is a Masonic, a pendant body, open to both men and women. So my question is, this isn't common knowledge. Like, if I see an upside down pentagram, immediately, my mind doesn't go to Masonic temple. It goes to, I don't know, Satan, demons, and like devil worship and stuff like that. Not to the Order of the Eastern Star. And so the thing about whether you have schizophrenia or any kind of mental health disorder that has hallucinations and delusions, typically when you have those kinds of things, they pick out things from your experiences, like your hallucinations and your delusions. So it's going to pick from the bank of information your brain stores about information that it has received over a period of time. And that could have been through experiences, whether, you're doing research or just basic life experience. So my question is, where in his life did he come across the Order of the Eastern Star? And so it made me wonder, did he perhaps research any of that stuff? Did he research the Freemasons, the specific order? Like, what made him go there is my question. Because without knowing that information for sure, and like I said, I didn't get any information while channeling other than like what I was feeling, like his ailments. But that could change things if he was involved in the Freemasons, but since we don't know that information, I am not going to talk about it. because the Freemason topic in general, let me just tell you, we would be here for at least 5 hours talking about it, because there's so much history and so much information to talk about. But so yeah, that is just my question of how does he know about that symbol? But yeah, like I said, I wasn't seeing any paranormal elements or entities that would have caused this. One thing that I did point out, because I did hear and see brain related, the other thing that is plausible is that he could have either some kind of cancer or tumor or something that's pressing on certain areas of the brain that could cause this behavior, and this could cause his symptoms. So I would say, if possible, he needs a brain scan. He needs to be thoroughly looked at, because how do you go from being a family man with no incidents? Now, of course, mental health issues can become undiagnosed, especially in the older generations of people, because the generation in which they were raised in didn't really focus too much on mental health, and more so things being wrong with the person, or them being wusses, or not being strong enough, or whatever. I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm just saying, like, that was the kind of mentality these people have. The other thing is, I would check the chemical balances in his brain to make sure there aren't any imbalances, because something is off. And I don't know, the work issues, my question to that is, not that you guys will know, but maybe someone in relation to the case might stumble upon this video. My question is, when those things started popping up at work, like his unprofessionalism and his anger outbursts, was it through the entirety of the duration that he worked there, or was he fine until a certain point where it just started to happen, is my question. Because I feel like there's something going on with the brain, and I feel like it might have just came out of nowhere. Like, it's strange. There are studies where there are tumors pressing on certain areas of the brain, and it changed the person, and it, like, personality wise, they did like a 180. So it's like, that's possible. And I feel like, I mean, there's no way to get validation on that unless unless he actually gets those tests done. But I feel like this is more a natural human thing and not a paranormal thing. However, I will say one thing I did see during channeling was a 9-pointed star. I don't know why I would. There's no relation between that and Freemasons, even the 7-pointed star, because I looked at stars that looked similar to the one I drew, and I'll show you a picture here. So in my research of Freemasons, I have never seen anything regarding that star, whether it was the 7 or 9-pointed star. So, but there's other things related, and I feel like because there's so many meanings to this star, I can't even pinpoint its relation. It could just be random. I don't know. I'm going to say this. I suspect that he allegedly went through a manic episode when he was at the gun store buying his gun or guns, his ammo, his jacket with the pockets. That was closer to the time in which he had gone on his murder spree. So, it was pre-planned, but I also feel like it was a manic episode simultaneously. Yeah, this is tricky. But yeah, I'm not getting paranormal on this one. Even though it has paranormal elements. Unless I was blocked, okay? Unless I was blocked by an entity and he was in it heavy, which, again, we don't have information saying that, then that is one reason why I wouldn't get that information. But, again, I'm not getting anything in those regards. But, guys, I'm gonna leave it there, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. What do you think? Do you think it was all mental health related, or do you think it was paranormal? Let me know down below. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Peace. Follow me.
Hunted